Reports from standing committees.
Mr. President, dated February 17th, 2026, your committee number 2, appropriations, to whom was referred Senate File 124, Economic Development Rodeo Museum, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with the recommendation that it do pass. Voting aye, Senators Driscoll, Garou, Larson, and Salazar. Voting no, Senator French. Signed, Senator Salazar, Chairman. Mr. President, dated February 17th, 2026, your committee number 2, appropriations, to whom was referred Senate File 81, K through 12, Public School Finance 2, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with the recommendation that it do pass. Voting aye, Senators Driscoll, French, Garou, Larson, excused, Senator Salazar. Signed, Senator Salazar, Chairman. Mr. President, your committee number 5, Agricultural, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, dated February 17, 2026, to whom was referred Senate File 50, State Engineer Surface and Groundwater Study, respectfully report same back to the Senate with the recommendation that it do pass amended. Voting aye, Senators Crago, Love, McEwen, Pearson. Voting no, Senator Ide. Signed, Senator Ide, Chairman. Mr. President, dated February 17, 2026, your committee number 5, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, to whom was referred Senate File 84, Voluntary Water Conservation Program, respectfully report same back to the Senate with the recommendation that it do pass as amended. Voting aye, Senators Crago, Ide, Love, McEwen, and Pearson. Signed, Senator Ide, Chairman. Mr. President, dated February 17, 2026, your committee number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom was referred Senate File 95, Drivers and Motor Vehicle Services, Third-Party Providers, respectfully report same back to the Senate with the recommendation that it do pass as amended. Voting aye, Senators Anderson, Barlow, Cooper, Kolb, and Pappas. Signed, Senator Cooper, Acting Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Dockstader, did you have a privilege of the floor?
Thank you, Mr. President. Privilege of the floor, please.
You bet. Floor is yours.
So Senator Schuler's neighbors on our back row decided we're going to acknowledge her today. Embarrass her. Embarrass her. Senator Landon and I are talking about this because we saw this being slipped into her bag quietly. During the lunch hour, she was honored as the Wyoming Youth Services Association Legislator of the Year, presented to Wendy Schuler, 2025. We congratulate Senator Wendy Schuler.
All right. Yeah. What do you have to say for yourself, Senator Schuler?
Mr. President, I think I may have been the only nominee. It was kind of a tough year around the state, but no, I'm very, very honored. Thank you.
Well, we are honored to serve with you, and thank you for all you do for our great state. Senator Larson.
Mr. President, thank you. I'd like to introduce some people.
Yes, please.
Please help me welcome some local gun manufacturers and accessories to our chamber. We have Carrie Rearson, Vice President of Manufacturing and Operations for Magpul, right here in Cheyenne. We have Melissa Emick, Senior Warehouse Operations Manager, also from Magpul. Please stand. And then I still have Tori Roodhouse, Marketing Manager from Aero Precisions and Stag Arms, based here in Cheyenne. And Glenn Nielsen, the Chairman of the Joint Powers Wyoming Shooting Complex.
All right, welcome to the Senate. Okay, Senator Ide, I got some green papers here in front of me. You better have some explaining to do to the good appropriations chairman after this.
Thank you, Mr. President. I need to do a couple of re-referrals here from my two bills that we came out of ag. The first one, I request a re-referral to the Appropriations Committee on Senate File 84. And if it's okay, Mr. President, can I go ahead with the other one right now?
Let's
as
do
well?
one at a time, please.
Okay.
And can you read the catch title on
Yes, sir.
Senate File 84, please?
Yeah, Mr. President, the first one, Senate File 84, is a voluntary water conservation program. I'd like to re-refer that to appropriations.
Okay, absent objection, it is so ordered. Senate File 84 is re-referred to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. Next.
Yeah, Mr. President, the second one we had that came out of agriculture this morning is, let's see here, lost my sheet. Oh, here it is. Senate File 50, State Engineer Surface and Groundwater Study. I'd like to re-refer that to appropriations as it has an appropriation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Absent objection, Senate File 50 is re-referred to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. I see Senator Pappas isn't here yet. I'll save this re-referral when he gets back. Okay. Madam Majority Floor Leader. Let's see here. We are at that order of business, amending and adoption of the rules. Madam Majority Floor Leader, do you have a proposed amendment?
Yes, Mr. President, I do have a proposed amendment. The amendment for our consideration is Amendment SR 001 which is Senate Rule 001 to Senate Rule 15, maintaining public order in the Senate. I move that the proposed amendment adding Senate Rule 15-9 be adopted. Good senators, you should have on your desks a copy of the proposed rule. As you are aware, over this past week, the Senate Rules Committee has been working on adopting a rule for your consideration concerning the prohibition on campaign contributions. Of note, this rule does two primary things. In paragraph A, the rule prohibits the solicitation or the receipt of campaign this is just a summary, the solicitation or the receipt of campaign donations year-long in the Capitol, in the areas of which the Senate President controls. So, big picture concept, subparagraph A, prohibits the receipt of campaign donations in this building. Subparagraph B, big picture concept, is the rule prohibits the solicitation or the receipt of campaign donations while we are in session, either special session or regular session. So I will read this for you. Paragraph A, no person shall knowingly solicit, offer, deliver, or accept by affirmative act a campaign contribution within any area under the control of the President of the Senate pursuant to Senate Rule 2-2 subparagraph F at any time. Paragraph B states, no member of the Senate shall knowingly solicit a legislative campaign contribution or accept a legislative campaign contribution by affirmative act on any day during which the Senate is in regular or special session. After further consultation with many of the senators, we have added paragraph C to provide further clarification on these prohibitions, and it reads as follows. This section shall not apply where a campaign contribution is received by a senator under circumstances where the senator took no affirmative act to solicit the contribution, nor to receive the contribution other than discovering that the contribution was made. And really the intention of this is to address the concerns about going to your mailbox and finding a campaign contribution that you were unaware was there, and you pick up your mail. You would not be in prohibition of this rule. You would not be in violation of this rule. So just to provide that additional clarification that, non-knowing, non-intentional acts are not what this rule is intended to prohibit, and to provide some reasonable understanding that things outside of our control can happen, and it is to control our conduct and deter that of others really for the appearance of influencing our votes in this building and during session. So could senators willing to stand for questions from other members of the Senate Rules Committee in order to address this very serious concern that's occurred within our Capitol during this session? Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Madam Majority Floor Leader. Discussion on the rules. Discussion on the proposed rule. Question being called. You have heard the motion of the Majority Floor Leader. Amending the rules requires a 2/3 majority vote for adoption. The Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Roll call vote, Senate Rule 001, Amendment. Anderson? Aye. Barlow? Aye. Boner? Aye. Brennan? Aye. Case? Aye. Cooper? Aye. Crago? Aye. Crum? Aye. Dockstetter? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. French? Aye. Garou? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? Aye. Ide? Aye. Jones? Aye. Kolb? Aye. Landon? Aye. Larson? Aye. Love? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Olson? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Pearson? Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. President Beitman?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. On the amendment, 31 aye.
By your vote, the amendment adding Senate Rule 15-9 has been adopted. There being no further amendments, the rules of the 68th Wyoming State Legislature stand as amended. Okay. Senator Schuler,
Thank you, Mr. President. Could I have privilege of the floor?
you may.
I think I have the right group up here. Fellow members, one of Wyoming's greatest wins and most significant achievements is the establishment and ongoing support of our medical school, made possible by our state's partnership with the University of Washington School of Medicine. Created in 1997, it started with a class size of 10 students each year, and due to its amazing success, was increased to 20 students in 2011. The impact of this program is undeniable. As of this year's incoming class, 463 Wyoming students have entered the WWAMI program. I call it WWAMI, I hope that's okay. 284 of those 463 have fully completed their medical training, and 172 of those have returned to Wyoming to practice medicine and take care of the people of our state. We are honored to have with us today the students from this year's class, escorted by the president of the University of Washington. Is he here? We'd like to have him stand up. Stand up, Dr. Robert J. Jones, and also the University of Wyoming president, Dr. Ed Seidel. I don't know if Dr. Seidel is here. Oh, there he is on the other side. These are first-year medical students who will spend their first 18 months of medical training just over the hill in Laramie before continuing on to their clinical phase of training to round out their 4-year medical school education. They hail from all corners of Wyoming, and with your permission, Mr. President, I'd like to introduce them now. So students, if you would stand when I call your name, and I'll try not to slaughter them too bad. First of all, how about Easton Couch from Rollins? Okay, and we'll just hold our applause till the very end. Erica Ferris from Cheyenne. Carlos Garcia from Wheatland. Elizabeth Gerling from Jackson. Annabelle Hagan from Jackson. Rachel Harrower from Jackson. Jackson's got quite a representation here. Logan Jensen from Sheridan. Samantha Johnson from Cheyenne. Alexis King from Kemmer. Maggie Kuhl from Sheridan. That's Maggie Kill, excuse me. Lindsay Lancaster from Evanston. Go Red Devils. Allie Lang from Rock Springs. Winston Littlejohn from Cheyenne. Cheryl Minton from Moorcroft. Jordan Moore from Powell. Dalton Nichols from Gillette. Brooklyn Prince from Cheyenne. Gabrielle Riemann from Casper. Zoe Robinson from Sheridan. And Danielle Shumway from Cheyenne. So please join me in welcoming these wonderful students, these first-year students from Wyoming and the WWAMI program.
Welcome to the Senate. We look forward to having you back as Doc of the Day sometime to take care of the good senator from Teton County. Senator French.
Thank you, Mr. President. Privilege of the floor.
Floor is yours, sir.
Speaking of that group, right up there is my niece, April. So she's helping these students out, and they're great representatives of the state. We should be really proud of these folks.
Good to have some family around. French family has been well represented in session this year. Keeping eyes on you. All right, shall we dive back into second reading then? Dive in or wade in. Second reading number 8, Senate File 1, second reading amendment number 18, and boy, I need a nap. Will the reading clerk please read in the amendment?
Senate File 1, second reading amendment number 18, page 1, line 13.
Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move second reading amendment number 18 to Senate File 1. Ladies and gentlemen, what this amendment does is it goes in and it amplifies a portion of the current WICHE program, similar to WWAMI, but not quite the same, for our veterinary students, especially those who may be interested in rural or large animal veterinary practices. Mr. President, we've seen increasingly challenges getting veterinarians into our more rural areas and focused on large animal practices. This is something where we have fewer and fewer people going into the business and the same amount of demand. So what this budget amendment tries to do, it's at the request of Veterinary Association statewide, who recognize the challenges here, but who have been working on solutions, especially with particular universities you'll see mentioned on line 18 that have strong large animal programs. All of this is doing is trying to put a special focus on those more rural practices. And so this amendment is the result of their efforts, veterinarians coming together throughout the state to really highlight and try to make for a more robust program getting new veterinary students back and practicing in rural areas. And so as a reminder, the way this program works is that you basically, the state will help pay for your tuition so long as you spend 3 years back in Wyoming doing the thing that the state helped pay your tuition for. So this is a significant barrier for a lot of kids who might be interested in performing veterinary medicine. It's something that this amendment leverages an existing program. So, but it gives that focus of where our veterinarians throughout the state have really identified there being a significant need, which is in this particular type of veterinary medicine. So you'll see it's $500,000 for up to 5 students, and then an ongoing appropriation if we do get those students in to ensure that they have the opportunity to complete the program, come back to the state, and begin to integrate themselves into our rural economies. So exact same rules as the existing program, exact same safeguards. This is just going through this budget amendment to highlight this one portion that, like I said, the people doing the work have really identified as being a challenge. So that's the amendment. I look forward to a discussion.
Thank you. Discussion on the amendment. Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, so someone who actually participated in this program, graduated from veterinary school, and came back and practiced for 20 years in Wyoming, I certainly support the notion that we need more food animal, particularly veterinarians in Wyoming. However, I would point out to the body, remind the body, that the veterinary program that's under the current program, WICHE, is the only program that does not have a requirement for a Wyoming student to come back and serve in Wyoming. I had 6 individuals that I went to school with. Out of those 6, I was the only one that returned to Wyoming and practiced. So if I'm going to be supportive of this, I would like to see that language very clearly stated in this, that they have an obligation to actually serve in Wyoming for those 3 years, because right now, under the WICHE program, that is in fact not a requirement. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Further discussion on the amendment? Further discussion? Senator Boner, you want to rebuttal, or do you want to vote?
Well, no, just reiterate what I said. And if, that's on line 27. So when I said they're required to come back to the stage of practice, that's what I meant. And that's on line 27, the 21-17-109D. And so that's significant. I appreciate the previous speaker, specifying that. That's that's one of the changes that we have, in addition to maybe branching out to other universities who are well known for their large animal programs. So I'll just read section D if that's okay. Okay, in addition to the requirement of subsection D, before expending any funds, the Board of Trustees, talking about the UW Board of Trustees, shall obtain an agreement for each student whereby the student agrees to, and there's 3 Romanettes, authorize the state of Wyoming to pay for all portion of the costs, actively engage, this is Romanet 2, in a professional practice or other professional pursuits in Wyoming for not to exceed 3 years as the board requires. So that's right there, and paragraph D, and then subparagraph Romanet 2. So hopefully that clears that up, Mr. President. Hope we can make this adjustment to a current program that's been apparently long overdue. Get these kids back to Wyoming for expending funds to support their education. They should probably spend a little time back in the state like we expect the dentists and optometrists and other folks who participate in this program. Thanks for the discussion. I appreciate it, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Roll call vote, amendment number 2018. Anderson. Aye. Barlow. Aye. Boner. Aye. Brennan. Aye. Case. Aye. Cooper. Aye. Crago. Aye. Crum. Aye. Dockstetter. Aye. Driscoll. Aye. French. Aye. Guru. Aye. Hicks. Aye. Hutchings. Aye. Ide. No. Jones. Aye. Cole. No. Landon. Aye. Larson. Aye. Love. Aye. McEwen. Aye. Nethercott. No. Olson. Aye. Pappas. Aye. Pearson. Aye. Rothfuss. Aye. Salazar. Aye. Schuler. Aye. Scott. Aye. Steinmetz. Aye. President Beitman.
No.
No. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Second reading amendment 18, 27 aye, 4 no.
Second reading amendment number 18 has been adopted. Second reading amendment number 19.
Senate File 1, second reading, Amendment 19, page 141 after line 19.
Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. President. Without objection, I would like to withdraw second reading amendment number 19. And if I could just take a moment and have a little leeway, I'd like to explain why.
Sure.
Mr. President, this restores all the technology money for all our little boards and commissions and the PSC and all of those folks. And while we're here on this amendment, you can see how long it is. So just for future reference, these monies are all monies from fees associated with all our little boards and commissions and things across the state. So when we reduce this money, we're not reducing state funds. It is their revenue. And so in the future, I hope we will keep that in mind as we skillfully craft a budget, because this is really not our money to touch. And so, so I was just restoring that. It has been done in the big, beautiful amendment. And so there's no need for this. So without objection, I'd withdraw it.
Thank you. Absent objection, second reading amendment number 19 has been withdrawn. Senate File 2, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is, actually, Senate File 1. Let me redo it. Senate File 1, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Pursuant to Joint Rule 14-1B, third reading will begin the second legislative working day after second reading is completed. Senator Bartley.
Thank you, Mr. President. And just a reminder to the body, as I was just in the LSO, we have until 5 o'clock to make your requests on those third reading amendments. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. 5 o'clock sharp. Okay, regular second reading. Bills on second reading. Thank you. Senate File 4, second reading of the Senate file.
Senate File 4, Medicaid rate increase EMS services, sponsored by Labor.
Senate File 4, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Senate File 9, second reading of the Senate file.
Senate File 9, fentanyl to minors enhanced penalty, sponsored by Judiciary.
Senate File 9, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Senate File 12, second reading of the Senate file.
Senate File 12, Wyoming National Guard Reenlistment Bonus Program, sponsored by Transportation.
Senate File 12, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Senate File 13, second reading of the Senate file.
Senate File 13, Wyoming National Guard Member Referral Amendments, sponsored by Transportation.
Senate File 13, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Senate File 14, second reading of the Senate file.
Senate File 14, Literacy Position for K through 3 Reading Program, sponsored by Education.
Senate File 14, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Senate File 32, second reading of the Senate file. Senate
File 32, 911 Funding, sponsored by Corporations.
There is an amendment. Would the reading clerk please read in the amendment?
Senate File 32, second reading, Amendment Number 1, page 1, line 2.
Senator Steinmetz. Oh, there's a corrected copy.
Mr. Chairman, I'm struggling to find that amendment. Just one.
Do you want my copy? I got a corrected copy right here.
My good friends around me might have one. Yes, I need the corrected one. Mr. President, if we could pause just a moment. There was
Sure.
a correction asked for by YDOT, and so I'm trying to accommodate that.
Okay.
So while that's being distributed, I would move second reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 32 and ask for your favorable consideration. And it is the corrected copy.
Okay.
And so basically on page 2, line 7, after September 1st, 2027, we are just adding language. It's kind of our belt and suspenders. Transition to the next generation 911 shall not occur without further legislative approval. Legislative approval shall not be required for applications for federal funds unless state matching funds or state funds are required as a condition of funding. This is just for us to keep control of this so that it's a study bill and that we're not transitioning. I don't know if people in this body remember or not, but when we were looking at the RIS system years ago, some actions were taken without our approval first, and it obligated the state in some areas that we were not anticipating, and it was a substantial amount of money. So as we look at this transition, and we have a deficit in our current 911 funding, that is what this is meant to prevent. So I'd ask for your favorable consideration. It hopefully strengthens the bill, doesn't harm it in any way.
Thank you, Senator. Discussion on the amendment. Senator Case.
Mr. President, why is this Senate always against transitioning? Mr. President, we talked about this in committee. $3 million of this bill is going to be used to give grants to local 911 systems. They're on the cusp of technology changes. I tried to explain how we had a telephone-based system. That's the way it was. And a lot of the trunking and everything still uses those copper circuits, or now possibly fiber circuits, but they're telephone based. And we're moving towards a really IP kind of digital world. Now, if someone is going to buy new services, they're probably going to use it to enhance their existing technology. But they would be foolish to buy something that wouldn't be compatible with a future new way we're going to be delivering enhanced 911. So I'm happy to work with the sponsor and the committee would to try to figure out maybe some middle ground, but this would kind of tell us that they'd have to improve their systems with old technology, is what this tells me. That, you can't use something that's going to be compatible to the new technology that we're all going to be adopting. So some systems are ahead. They've got some enhanced 911 components. Others are not. But for us to say, you can't make any transition or have anything that has to do with transitioning, I think the Senate's going a little bit too far on that. I'm happy to talk about transitioning, Mr. President.
Okay. Any further discussion on the amendment? Senator Steinmetz for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. President. And this is not meant to hinder those technology improvements in any way. It's just in order to transition to the complete system, we need further legislative approval. The department in the hallway, we had a visit about this, and just now, a few moments ago, they don't believe it will hinder them from buying equipment that is ready for that next gen 911. However, they won't fully transition the system until we give legislative approval. And it also allows them to accept federal funds and utilize those for some of the components of the system. It's just if they want any state money, they need to come back to the appropriations arm of government, which is us, and I would hate for us to abrogate our authority in that way. So please vote aye on the amendment.
Thank you. We're voting on second reading amendment number 1, the Senate File 32. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those against, no. The amendment has been adopted. We are back on the bill. Division being called. All those in favor stand. (17 plus 1, 18), okay. Amendment has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Discussion on the bill. Senate File 32 having been read 2 separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Senate File 36, second reading of the Senate file.
Senate File 36, Hathaway Lump Sum Merit Scholarship sponsored by Education.
Senate File 36, having been read 2 separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Senate File 45, second reading of the Senate file.
Senate File 45, local approval for simulcasting sponsored by Management Council.
Senate File 45, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Senate File 47, second reading of the Senate file.
Senate File 47, increase of Hathaway Scholarship Awards sponsored by Education.
Senate File 47, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Senate File 52, second reading of the Senate file.
Senate File 52, 2026, large project fundings sponsored by Natural Resource.
Senate File 52, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Senate File 58, second reading of the Senate file.
Senate File 58, Wyoming Indian Child Welfare Act Sunset Repeal, sponsored by Tribal Relations.
Senate File 58, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Senate File 68, second reading of the Senate file.
Senate File 68, Water District Funds for Maintenance Projects sponsored by Water.
There is an amendment. Would the reading clerk please read in the amendment?
Senate File 68, second reading, amendment number 1, page 1, line 5.
Senator Hicks.
Mr. President, I move second reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 68 and ask for your favorable consideration. Now, this is the bill we passed out yesterday, but there's 3 different divisions in this. One of them covers irrigation districts, one of them covers water conservancy district, and then one section covers watershed improvement districts. Under a watershed improvement district, every year those supervisors set what that assessment is. Under irrigation districts, they go to their annual meetings and they set what that assessment is. Water conservancy districts are just a little bit different animal as they have a number of assessments, but their primary assessment is a mill levy. So not being able to adjust what that mill is every year is different than irrigations and water conservancy districts because they're capped. And so all this would allow them to do is come in and assess an extra 1 mill. Keep in mind, this has to go back to the members of the districts for a vote at their annual meeting, but it just provides them a little bit more flexibility in there to raise these funds specifically for the purposes of major maintenance. And that's all this does, is provide them a little more authority to do assessments. These assessments are on their irrigated ground, goes through a membership meeting, that's how they would set that. Just providing a little more flexibility for them to raise the money for large major maintenance projects. I'd stand for any questions.
Questions, discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, we're voting on second reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 68. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Okay. You can't vote present in the Wyoming Senate. That amendment has been adopted by the 2 ayes and 0 noes. Senate File 68 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Senate File 70, second reading of the Senate file.
Senate File 70, Omnibus Water Bill Construction sponsored by Water.
There is an amendment. Would the reading clerk please read in the first amendment?
Senate File 70, second reading, amendment number 1.
Senator Hicks.
Mr. President, I move second reading number 1 to Senate File 70 and ask for your considerations. Folks, this creates a new Section 5 in the water bill that pertains specifically to the Small Water Project Program. This program, we annually expend about $1 million a year for these small, they're $35,000 grants, much smaller than the normal awards when you see come through the omnibus bill. Typically, those are in the millions of dollars for large projects. This program has been very popular around the state and it's growing, but one of the impediments that we're having with the program is it tends to operate in a uniform fashion with the large program. So think that you're being awarded, $3.5 million versus $35,000. And so the primary recipients of these tend to be water users. Conservation districts are the most common sponsors, but we've seen cities and towns sponsor projects. I think there's a couple irrigation districts out there. But it's a very complicated and protracted process. And so all this does is set up as an evaluation to go back and say, look at the program. Where can we build efficiencies into the program for both the state and the recipient? So let me just illustrate this with an example. So a sponsor sponsors a project for, let's say, a landowner or a ditch company or something like that. As part of that application, they have to submit the materials, which would include any engineering and design work. Typically, those would be through either a federal or a state agency, or they require a licensed certified engineer. So then the agency gets those applications, and before you can proceed with those projects, they do an internal review of those engineering projects, similar to they would do also. So we spend a lot of time in duplication of reviewing and reviewing. That's just one example, and what that does is it adds a significant amount of cost on for those local sponsors, and it adds a significant amount of cost on for the state to go through and review all those. And we're up to some years 80, 90 applications that they have to go through. So the agencies had to put on more people. And what we're just asking them to do is go back and evaluate the program, look and see where you can find those efficiencies for both the state and also the sponsors. And the genesis of this bill is because these same sponsors that are utilized in this program are also utilized in the Wildlife Natural Resource Trust Fund, or they may be using the State Land Preservation and Enhancement Account funds, or they may be using water development funds. And what you typically see on this, to go drill a water oil with the Office of State Lands and Investment, your project folder and contract is like this. To do the exact project, and if you use funding through the Wildlife Natural Resource Trust Fund, your contract and your supporting documents is like this. It's an application, you sign a contract, you agree to the terms and conditions, and you do the project. The same project with water development, you end up with a contract and agreement like this. And a lot of this is just filler. Operation and maintenance agreements that we just photocopy and paste and send them in and start stuffing all these folders in. The fundamental difference between all the other state programs is they put the liability back on the sponsor to comply with all state, federal laws, rules, and regulations. But what our agency does with these, they make sure everything's done in the folder, and that just takes a tremendous amount of time and effort. So all we're asking the agency to do is go back, reevaluate your program in light of how all these other state programs work, and try to find some efficiencies for both the sponsors and the state. What we hope to come out of this is maybe we can reduce an FTE and some workload on our state agencies, streamline the program, and get the projects done in a much more efficient. So, Mr. President, it just requires a study and an evaluation of the program. Certainly something that's been talked about a number of times, but that's all the bill does. I'd stand for any questions on the bill, and if there's no questions, ask for your favorable consideration.
Discussion on second reading amendment number 1, the Senate File 70. Seeing none. Call for the question. All those in favor of second reading amendment number 1, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Second reading amendment number 1 has been adopted. We are on second reading amendment number 2.
Senate File 70, second reading, amendment number 2, page 55, line 12.
Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move second reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 70 and ask for your favorable consideration. Fellow Senators, this is back to the Alkali Creek project on page 55 of your bill. And all I'm seeking to do here, since we extended the date by 1 year, and this has been a highly controversial project, is say that beginning April 1st, 2026, funds from the appropriation made in this paragraph shall not be expended or used to exercise eminent domain for the purposes of this project. Mr. President, that just says we're not going to allow you to use state money for eminent domain on this project. Dealing with the controversy that has surrounded this area and this project and this community because of this project, I think this just evens out the playing field and makes things fairer. So I hope you would support this amendment, since we have extended the date in which to get those easements until 2027.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to clarify that it says with the good senator that they cannot use state money, they could use their own money. Is that what it says?
Okay, any other questions before the sponsor, Senator Rothfuss?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I'm curious along the same lines as the previous senator of how this would work. And one concern I potentially have gets to the discussion that we had yesterday, which is that if there is no eminent domain possibility, then that changes the negotiation position to a large degree and obviates the project. That's not to say that we want eminent domain to take place, but it is the idea that there is the possibility of eminent domain that allows for a lot of these negotiations to go forward, because nobody wants that to happen. So when you take that away, you take away the negotiating position of those that are trying to move the project forward. And it seems to me that it's tantamount to the amendment yesterday. It's the functional equivalent, even if the language is different. And I had concerns about that. So Mr. President, I think I'm resisting this amendment unless there's a good explanation of how alternatively it could proceed in a reasonable fashion.
Thank you, Senator. Further discussion, Senator French.
Thank you, Mr. President. I fully support this amendment. What landowner out there wants to be browbeat with, you either work with me, negotiate with me, or I'll do eminent domain and take it anyway? I don't think anybody in this room would like to be harangued like that. It's not right.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Ide.
I'll pile on there too. Thank you, Mr. President. I think this is a good amendment. Anytime you can put a speed bump in front of eminent domain, it's good. It's really not fair to be using taxpayer money anyway. I mean, the neighbors that are against this, you're effectively using their money to condemn their own property. So I'm on and for this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Ide. Any further discussion before the sponsor? Senator Dockstetter.
I'll let my colleague go first and then I'll.
Oh, Senator Landon.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I get it. I don't think any of us are over the moon with eminent domain, but my concern with state money is, this thing has gone on for quite a long time over there. And I just wonder, is there any concern by the sponsor that this is going to be a cost driver again? Because if you can't execute eminent domain, even in a minor way, it may force rerouting and certain considerations on a project that might drive some costs. So is there any concern about that? Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Dockstetter.
Thank you, Mr. President. Appreciate the discussion. I'm listening to it. I think it's a lot simpler than what we're considering. It simply comes down to property rights. Are we on the side of property rights or not? So standing with the sponsor and for the amendment.
Thank you. Anybody else before the sponsor? Senator Scott.
Mr. President, this is a water project, and water projects tend to be constrained as to where you can do them. Used to be you had to, and may well still apply here, you had to have something that would work gravity flow. The locations are constrained, and very frequently, if you're going to do a water project at all, you have to have the ability to do eminent domain or you don't get it done, simply because the locations are so constrained. And that's why in our Constitution, eminent domain is authorized for private water projects as well as public ones. And I wonder if this amendment doesn't just remove the practicality of this project entirely, Mr. President. And maybe the project is just too expensive to be a good idea, but that's a different issue than the eminent domain. So, Mr. Chairman, I have real reservations about this amendment. I think that you do have some special needs for eminent domain in getting a water project successfully done.
Thank you, Senator Scott. Senator Crago, can you take the chair real quick?
Senator Beitman.
Thank you. Typically don't get out of the chair, but I do have the same concerns as the good tall senator. I question the constitutionality of this amendment. It's clear in our state constitution that we have eminent domain for these types of projects, and taking this out, I think, is unconstitutional. I would caution against it. Thank you.
Any additional discussion before the sponsor? Seeing none, back to the sponsor.
Mr. Chairman, in addressing the constitutionality, this was specifically crafted to only touch state funds. We're just saying you cannot use these state funds that have been appropriated for eminent domain. That does not inhibit their other funding if they have some private funds or something else in the project besides the state. We're just saying the state funds should not be utilized in this way. It is a heavy hand when you get several $1 million from the state and then exercise eminent domain over private property and use those funds to basically buy out your neighbor's property. So there's a lot of issues with this project still. I believe they weren't even ready for construction. All of their design work is not even complete after all of these years. Visited with some of the folks up there just over the lunch hour, lots of concerns with this project still. And so I just want to make sure that they are protected from the unequal footing that they stand on today, which is the ability to use our state dollars for eminent domain and condemnation of their property. So with that, I would just ask for your aye vote on this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. We're voting on second reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 70. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. Chairs in doubt, we'll do a standing division. All those in favor, please stand. The amendment has failed. All those opposed, do we need to do? Okay, yep, we'll do all those opposed. $17 no, 12 aye. The amendment has failed. We're back on the bill. Senate File 70. Having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Senate File 79, second reading of the Senate file.
Senate File 79, Sales and Use Tax Reorganization, sponsored by Revenue.
Senate File 79, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Senate File 82, second reading of the Senate file.
Senate File 82, Duties of Registered Agents, Amendments, sponsored by Senator Craig.
Senate File 82, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Senator Dockstader.
Mr. President, before we move on to thirds, may I have privilege of the floor, please?
Floor is yours.
Had a wonderful group of students in town. They've been out, sent them out to the Wyoming Department of Transportation to get an understanding all morning long of just how difficult it is to take care of the highways and all that goes on with transportation in our state. And they'll be visiting some other places of importance too while they are in Cheyenne. But I'd like the Senate to please welcome the Swift Creek High School from Star Valley. If you'd please stand. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, and thanks for making the trek from Star Valley. That's a ways. Senator Driscoll.
Point of inquiry. What's the mascot?
What is the mascot of those Star Valley folks?
Well, Star Valley High School's Braves. I'm going to let these students report on their mascot. Who's the spokesman?
We're the Bulldogs.
Bulldogs. All right. Welcome, Bulldogs. All right, Senator Schuler.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can I have privilege of the floor?
Floor is yours.
Just wanted to pile on with the Swift High School folks up there. There's somebody that's really special in my life. She happens to be one of their top dog teachers I know, Mrs. Olivia Hathaway. The only thing about her is she moved from Bridger Valley to Star Valley, but we sure love her, so stand up and let us give you a hand. Don't be shy.
All right, any more privileges? Privilege of the floor, Senator Larson.
Mr. President, I made a mistake earlier today introducing our chairman, and I want to make a correction. It's not Glenn Nielsen, it's Glenn Ross. So I am very sorry.
Oh, no worries. Duly noted. Anybody else? Madam Chief Clerk, do you want to stand at ease to the sound of the gavel while we get ready for general file? All right, Senator Cole, did you have anything?
Mr. President, no, I was just sitting down.
Oh, just stretching those legs. All right, well, we'll stretch our legs. The Senate will stand at ease until the sound of the gavel. Senate will come back to order. Senator Olson.
Mr. President, I would like to re-refer Senate File 118, eminent domain water projects, absent objection, to Committee Number 5, Agriculture.
Okay. Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Senate File 118 has been re-referred to Committee Number 5, Agriculture. All right, Madam Majority Floor Leader, for that order of business of consideration of bills on general file.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate resolve itself into committee of the whole.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries resoundingly. Senator Jones, come on down.
Do I hit it on here? The Committee of a Whole, please come to order. The first bill for our consideration is Senate File 19. The reading clerk will read the Senate file.
Senate File 19, epinephrine delivery methods, sponsored by Senator Rothfuss, referred to Committee Number 10, do pass recommendation, voting aye, Senators Brennan, Crum, Hutchings, Scott, Steinmetz, signed Senator Brennan, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure? Sorry, I'm short. Senator Brennan.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rise to report, it do so with a favorable recommendation that Senate File 19 do pass. And for an explanation of the bill, I will give it over to the sponsor, Senator Rothfuss.
Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, Senate File 19, epinephrine delivery methods, is a simple bill. In statute right now, we have a number of different statutes that relate to epinephrine, and in almost all instances, it refers to the use of epinephrine auto-injectors. So those are what we typically call EpiPens. It's a standard delivery system for emergency use. And we have provisions that provide for Good Samaritan laws, specific use cases, administration of stock epinephrine, and a number of other circumstances in statute. Over the past few years, a number of other different delivery methods have become more popular and often more cost-effective. That includes nasal inhalant-style delivery systems, individual ampules, and other opportunities. This bill does nothing to change policy, but it allows for the use of alternative delivery mechanisms equivalently throughout statute. So there's no change in what is and isn't allowed, but there is a change in broadening the types of administration that are available. And you see it goes back to some core definitions where instead of it being specific, it's the administration of any type of delivery system that is approved by the FDA. So, Madam Chairman, that's the bill. It's simple and straightforward. I'd ask for your favorable recommendation and would be happy to answer any questions.
Senator Scott.
Madam Chairman, my question is, am I right in thinking that epinephrine is an antidote if you get a severe allergic reaction to something or a reaction to a drug, particularly illegal drug overdose, but it could be to a legal drug as well? Is that a correct understanding?
Senator Rothfuss.
Yeah. Madam Chairman, it's for allergic reactions, not typically for drug overdose. That you're probably thinking of Narcan at that point, which is also in statute, but this doesn't deal with that.
Are you ready for the question? All those in favor of Senator Brennan's motion that when the committee of a whole rises to report, it do so with a favorable recommendation of Senate File 19, say aye. Those opposed, no. Senate File 19 has passed the committee of the whole. The next bill for consideration is Senate File 53. Will the reading clerk please read the bill?
Senate File 53, Keeping Amateurism in High School Athletics, an act relating to education, sponsored by Senator Crum, referred to Committee Number 4, which returned a due pass recommendation, voting aye, Senators Brennan, Olson, Rothfuss, Schuler, and Scott, signed Senator Schuler, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure?
I move that
Senators-
thank you, Madam Chairman. I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation of that Senate file, what's the number, Mr. Senator?
53.
53, thank you. I can't find it on my messy desk. Do pass. With that, I would turn the time over to Senator, the good senator.
Senator Crum.
Madam Chairman, I'd ask for a favorable consideration of this file. It is keeping amateurism in high school sports, and it's a very straightforward file. It keeps high school students from getting paid for playing in high school sports. We all are aware of NIL or paying college players. There's a very simple reason that happened, and it was the feeling that universities were making so much money on their athletes that the athletes ought to share in the profits of the university. Well, we take that same underlying reason for doing this and then try to lay that into high school sports in Wyoming. And I'm not sure we can say high schools are making all this money on athletics, therefore we ought to share. I would imagine most high schools are losing quite a bit of money on providing that educational opportunity for high school athletics. And really, high school athletics is about providing character development, teamwork, overcoming adversity, learning discipline and direction and those type of things. It's not about getting paid. So this does not limit the Wyoming High School Activities Association in any way from what they're currently doing. They're still allowed to pay for trophies and ribbons, and schools are still allowed to pay for travel and meals and uniforms and all the things that they do. It doesn't limit them. It leaves the High School Activities Association open to continue to change their program if they need to over time, as far as providing meals or program, those type of things. Giving bigger trophies if that's where it goes in the future. It doesn't limit that at all. One thing this bill does not address is high school rodeo. High school rodeo is not a part of the High School Activities Association. It's a complete separate thing. So high school rodeo, if a student is participating in high school rodeo and there's prize money with the rodeo, they're still allowed to accept that. In no way does it address that. It's just those sports and activities that are underneath the High School Activities Association that would be with this. So again, what it does, it keeps students from transferring schools. You can still transfer, like in the capital city here, there's school choice, you can still do that, but we can't have a coach at a school on one side of town offer somebody a pickup truck to come here and play basketball and then go over to another side of town and we'll give you a Lincoln Navigator or something like that. So with that, I'd ask for your favorable consideration on keeping amateurism in high school athletics.
Senator Ide.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Chairman, Madam Chairman. I didn't see anything, does it distinguish between public and private schools? That's my question. Thank you.
Senator Crum.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, there is not anything to distinguish them. If that public or private school, either one is part of the activities association, then they follow the activity association's rules, which in this case would be the activity association would not allow for payment to a student. So if they're outside of the activity association, they form a separate association for some reason, the private schools, this does not address that association could do whatever they wanted. This is just those students under the high school activity association.
Any other questions? All those in favor of Senator Schuler's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it do so with a favorable recommendation of Senate File 53, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Senate File 53 has passed committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration,
Next bill for our consideration is Senate File 61. Will the reading clerk please read the Senate file?
Senate File 61, motor vehicle sales to family members not taxable, an act relating to taxation and revenue, sponsored by Senator Jones, referred to Committee Number 3, which recommended a due pass recommendation as amended, voting aye, Senators Case, Dockstader, Ide, McEwen, and Pappas.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure? Senator McEwen.
I move that when committee of the whole rises to report, it do so with a recommendation that Senate File 61 do pass. And to cover this bill, I would like to turn it over to Senator Jones.
Thank you, Senator McEwen. Senator Jones, back over to you.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill addresses the purchases or transfers of motor vehicles made from immediate family members when there is a loan on the vehicle. The key parts of the bill are that the seller or the donor has paid sales tax at the initial purchase, the sale or gift is to an immediate family member. When there is a loan on the vehicle, this bill eliminates the tax owed on the loan amount. Why is this bill important? Currently, if there is no loan on the vehicle, families can transfer a vehicle between immediate family members with a bill of sale, often for $0, then zero taxes due. This bill recognizes that a transfer between immediate family members is not the same as an arm's length commercial transaction. With this bill, family members receiving a car from an immediate family member, whether for estate planning, financial hardship, divorce, or simply helping out a child or a parent, and then they have to pay sales tax on the amount of that loan. This seems like double taxation. Senate File 61 helps with real-life scenarios and helps us keep a little more money in our pockets. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Senator Jones. We've got a standing committee amendment. Senator McEwen, let's go back to you on the standing committee amendment. And let's have that read in.
Senate File 61, Standing Committee Amendment Number 1, page 2, line 10.
Senator McEwen.
I would like to move Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 61.
Any explanation?
No.
We can move over to someone else if you'd like.
Back over to Senator Jones, who brought the amendment.
All right, sounds great. Let's do that. Thank you. Senator Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is just a simple amendment, and we just wanted to make sure that all family members were included. So it will read spouse or sibling and step-parent, stepchild, or step-sibling. And that will be in 2 places in the bill.
Okay, thank you, Senator Jones. We are on Standing Committee Amendment number 1. Is there any discussion on the Standing Committee Amendment? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Standing Committee Amendment number 1 to Senate File 61 has been adopted. We're back on the bill. On Senate File 61, motor vehicle sales to family members not taxable. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, question's been called. All those in favor of Senator McCune's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with a favorable recommendation on Senate File 61, please say aye. Those opposed, no. Senate File 61 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for your consideration is Senate File 48. Will the reading clerk please read the Senate file?
Senate File 48, Stem Cell Freedom Act, an act relating to public health and safety, sponsored by Senator Barlow, referred to Committee Number 10, which returned a do pass as amended recommendation. Voting aye, Senators Brennan, Crum, Hutchings, Scott, and Steinmetz. Signed, Senator Brennan, Chairman.
Senator Brennan.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rise to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 48 do pass. There's a standing committee amendment. Could we have that read in this time?
Will the reading clerk read the amendment?
Senate File 48, Standing Committee Amendment Number 1, page 5, after line 3.
Thank you. I move Standing Committee Amendment 1 to Senate File 48, and for an explanation of the bill and the amendment, I'm going to turn it over to the sponsor of the bill, Senator Barlow.
Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good colleagues, this is a bill. It doesn't seem like we introduced it just a few days ago. That's the pace we go at during the budget session. Senate File 48, Stem Cell Freedom Act. This, as I explained when I introduced it, is a framework to provide safe healthcare within a legal framework with ethical considerations. Other states have approached this in different ways, and there are challenges. The approach that I have taken and my co-sponsors have taken for Wyoming is to do it under the right to try framework. The right to try framework is in Wyoming law and in federal law. So what we have here is an ability for a physician, and this is currently physicians, to provide stem cell therapy to a consenting patient. And there are safeguards. I'll just go to page 3 and start talking about the safeguards. The safeguard is your cells for your powerful medicine. And there is no use of umbilical or fetal-derived tissues in this bill. This is autologous mesenchymal stem cells, cells that have the ability to differentiate and use their innate abilities to provide regenerative medicine in your body. This bill, why this is, and as you might know, stem cells are being offered, but they're being offered in a very limited approach right now under FDA regulation. This expands that within this right to try framework to basically stem cell 2.0 or 3.0 with safeguards. Safeguards on who does it, safeguards on how they're collected and processed, and safeguards about the patient understanding the complications and risks. Now I'm going to deal with the Standing Committee Amendment very quickly. This is the ability for the Board of I almost said veterinary medicine, thank you, the Board of Medicine to actually have a registry for those that are performing stem cell therapy pursuant to this act, to register with them so that the potential patient can go to that registry and say, yes, in fact, this physician has registered to do this type of medicine. And the registry is not a registry whether they're doing it properly or anything. It's just a notice to the public that yes, we're offering it, and you can be assured we're going to abide by the standards in this statute. So, Madam Chairman, maybe first let's dispose of the Standing Committee amendment. Any questions on it? I'd be glad to stand for them.
The motion,
Call for the question on the amendment.
seeing no questions for the amendment, Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 48. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. The Standing Committee Amendment has passed to Senate File 48. Back on the bill.
So, Madam Chairman, I'd be glad to explain more of the intricacies of the bill and the details of the bill, but let me just share 5 Wyoming stories. Grandfather diagnosed, 25 years later, he's able to tell a story. A son, ALS, gave quality of life to his mother. A farmer, father, injured in an accident, regained use of his eye, facial muscles. A PRCA rodeo, told he had to have surgery that would end a career. And a mother who was told that her daughter at 5 years old would be confined to a wheelchair the rest of her life. What do these all have in common? They all used stem cell therapy, and they all had to leave the United States to receive that treatment. Ladies and gentlemen, we can lead in this country, in Wyoming, to provide this type of powerful medicine in our state. And I'd ask for your favorable consideration and stand for any questions. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Seeing no questions, all those in favor of Senator Brennan's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with a favorable recommendation of Senate File 48, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Senate File 48, Stem Cell Freedom Act, has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 23. Will the reading clerk please read the bill?
Senate File 23, Outpatient Examination and Commitment Length, an act relating to public health and safety, sponsored by Senator Schuler, referred to Committee Number 10, which returned a due pass as amended recommendation. Voting aye, Senators Brennan, Crum, Hutchings, Scott. Voting no, Senator Steinmetz. Signed, Senator Brennan, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure?
I move that I move that when the Committee of the Whole rise to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 23 do pass. For an explanation of the bill, I will turn it over to the sponsor, Senator Schuler.
Senator Schuler.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm actually paying attention this time. On my desk, I found the bill, so we're good. I bring to you Senate File 23, Outpatient Examination and Commitment Length. Again, this was a bill that was brought forward by a judge in our area. And basically, the bottom line is we're just expanding the list of examiners that are qualified to perform involuntary hospitalization examinations. So all we're doing on page 2 is just bringing in the PAs, the advanced practice registered nurses, and the physician assistants. The biggest thing we have is, once they get notice of this person's maybe been picked up and they're in jail or whatever, that they may have some issues, you only have 7 days to get that examination in. So by expanding the folks that can do the examinations, it's really helping to get our folks out of the jails and either on some meds or outpatient or inpatient, whatever it ends up being. In the past, it's only been a physician, a psychiatrist, and a psychologist. And as I mentioned on introduction, we have very few of those. If they're not in the community, they're working for the state hospital, and I think probably in some of our rural areas, we're in the same boat. But we see a lot of physicians, not very many physicians that have time to do it, but we're seeing a lot of APRNs, the nurse, the advanced practice registered nurses, and the licensed physician's assistants. So really all we're doing is expanding that list. And then when there's a review that comes about, and anyone on that list can also do the review. I've talked about this with a couple different people. Generally, if there's a review, they would usually appoint someone that's not the person that did the examination. That's generally the way it is. But that first 7 days is very important to try and get that examination in. So with that, I know there's a couple of amendments, and I don't know if you want to work those before we work the bill. Okay, so I will turn that over to, I'm not sure whose is first.
Senator Brennan?
If we could have Standing Committee Amendment 1 read in at this time, please.
Senate File 23, Standing Committee Amendment Number 1, page 1, line 5.
Thank you. I would move Standing Committee Amendment 1 to Senate File 23 and ask for your favorable consideration. Members of the body, this, when it came through committee on page 3, lines 9, we struck this wording not to exceed 2 years. So let me explain. Currently, when somebody goes in, they have, there's a period of time as determined appropriate by the court not to exceed 2 years with review by the court at least every 6 months. So the courts are reviewing these patients every 6 months, but not more than 2 years. After 2 years, then they're basically done with the program. The bill struck out the words not to exceed 2 years. The committee felt that it was important to have that limit of not to exceed 2 years in the bill, and so this would just keep current if this amendment is adopted, it keeps current statute. And we'll stand for any questions on the amendment.
Seeing no questions, all those in favor of Senator Brennan's motion to adopt the Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 23, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The motion to adopt Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 23 has passed, and we are back on the bill. There is another amendment. Will you please read in the second amendment?
Senate File 23, Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1, page 2, line 17, corrected copy.
Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 23 and ask for your favorable consideration. Fellow Senators, this amendment happens on page 2, line 17 and 18, and after nurse and assistant, we're just adding certified as a mental health professional. This is actually the reason I voted against this bill in committee, is because when we're dealing with people's civil liberties, it's very important that we have the appropriate people making these decisions. They're very weighty decisions. As we're committing them to involuntary treatment, whether it be we're institutionalizing them or putting a treatment program together for them and mandating that they take care of this. So this would just come in on the review section, the part where the court shall appoint a licensed physician, et cetera. You can see that through 16 through 18 on page 2, lines 16, 17, and 18. This just kind of tightens that up a little bit to make sure that this is a certified mental health professional who is reviewing these decisions so that we're not making mistakes and people aren't falling through the cracks. So I would ask for your favorable consideration after consultation with the sponsor of the bill. I think she may be favorable to this amendment as well.
Any questions on the amendment? Senator Scott.
Madam Chairman, this is an amendment that in an ideal world we ought to pass. But we don't live in an ideal world. We live in a world where the supply of medical professionals in Wyoming is in serious trouble. We do have some of these people certified mental health. We don't have enough. And it's my judgment that we're better off without this amendment because we are having trouble getting these 7-day hearings done. I think that we need to have the broader ability to use these certified nursing assistants and physician's assistants to conduct these hearings, because I think if we restrict it this much, we're going to continue to have the troubles that brought you the bill. We simply don't have, for a whole series of reasons we could talk about for the rest of the afternoon. We have real shortages in our health professionals in the state, and particularly in some parts of the state. So, Madam Chairman, on and against the amendment.
Senator Crum.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, I'm caught in the middle on this one. You know, to commit somebody, it ought to be probably really, really hard to do, but yet able to do it in the right situation. And in my family, we've had to do that, unfortunately, but maybe it's fortunate that we did have the ability to do it, but it was really hard. And that was a good thing, because it should be really hard. But I do understand where the good senator from up at Bates Creek is on a lack of professionals. I'm personally fine with if it's a nurse assistant or a PA, if they have the training to make those decisions. You know, if you're certified in orthopedics as a physician assistant, do you have the training to make a psychological determination? And that would be my concern right now on the bill. I hear the need for more, and I'm good with that. But at the same time, I want to make sure that people have the training to make the decisions that they're making, and that we don't put somebody in an institution that doesn't need to be there, although I understand completely the need that some people need to go there. So right now, I'd like to know more about the training requirements for somebody to make that decision. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Brennan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What we have before us is an amendment and a discussion, I think, that lines out the debate that we heard in committee on this bill, that there is a need for more people to be able to do these examinations, that there is a need for more people to review these examinations. And yet we want to make sure that it's the right people that are doing these examinations. There's been talk and debate. I think that if we want to make sure that these people are certified, that their expertise is in the mental health, that this amendment strikes that balance to do that. So I would just encourage us to just consider the different implications of exactly what we're doing, and I think that this is a good amendment to strike a good balance.
Senator Landon.
Madam Chairman, based on the last conversation, I just needed to stand and ask a couple of questions. It seems I have a couple of facilities in my community, and so I have a great interest here, and that's where a lot of our citizens come, and things get backed up horribly to try to get them over to the good senator's neck of the woods. This requirement that we put in place, what kind of impact is that going to have on those facilities? I just hesitate to do things like this on the fly instead of during an interim when we can get public input. I have the same concerns that the senator from Bates Creek said, outlined. You know, we don't have enough healthcare professionals. We've got people who might be working and doing one heck of a job in those facilities that I just mentioned, and they don't have I don't know how long it takes to get certified as a mental health professional, but we might have some of the best and brightest taking care of some of this stuff. We do this on an amendment on the fly, and then all of a sudden, they can't do their job. And folks, we're backed up on this front. We've got people waiting sometimes 6 months to get over to the hospital in the Southwest. So I've just got some real cautions here, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Senator Hutchings.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too have a few reservations. We brought this up in the committee and we defeated it. And I'd like to hear from the good bringer of the bill, since they said that they got together, to give us an idea why now she is okay with it, to help me vote yes. Thank you.
Senator Schuler.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. You know, I understand where the good senator that brought the amendment is coming from. And as I mentioned to her when we talked about this amendment, I really don't think when you do the review that you will choose probably the same person that did the examination. The thing about the examination, that's the biggest, you know, hill that we have to climb, is to get that done in 7 days. And so, and I wanted her to feel more comfortable with the bill. So I said, well, you know, we could leave it with, you know, with the amendment. Here's what it will do, though. It will further confine the folks that can actually do the review. Because I only know of 2 APRNs that have a psychiatric background over in my neck of the woods. So basically you're saying we can use them to examine them, but then if they get called, somebody else gets called to review, it has to be an APRN with a psychiatric background. And it does narrow the amount of people that we would have. And so, you know, that's why I said, you know, we could leave it in there, but again, the examination is the most important focus for me, is to get those people out of the jails, out of the hospitals, you know, and get them on meds or get them where they need to be. The review, as I mentioned before, I think the review is always probably going to be done by somebody other than the person that did the exam. So again, I guess if we leave the amendment in, it narrows down who can do that. And like I said, I only know of a couple in my neck of the woods, nurses that are APRNs that have that psychiatric background. I'm not sure about the PAs. So, you know, vote it up or vote it down. The bill will be okay either way. If I had my druthers, I'd say vote it down, but I'm always trying to compromise too, so there you have it.
Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So I guess it would be helpful for some of us, and even though I have spent a lot of time with Title 25, and this is in Title 25, 109, 110 hearings, is to remind the body what the definition of an examiner is. Because actually that is what we're talking about here is you start with an examiner, and then if the examiner is not a physician or a APRN or a physician assistant, and the court wants a review. So maybe if someone would quickly give us the definition of who an examiner could be, that would be helpful. Thank you, ma'am.
Senator Schuler.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I don't have that right here handy, but when I did the bill, I did look it up, and you would be surprised that to know that a marriage and family counselor could actually do an examination, which to me that, you know, I mean, I have a psychology background, but I don't know that I would feel comfortable doing it. But, you know, it does expand a little bit with who can do the examinations. And I'm sure most of them have psychiatric or, you know, psychology backgrounds as well. But that's probably a statute that we need to take a really close look at and maybe do something about the statute. Again, this is mainly just a way to expand access to people that can actually get these folks in and out of our jails and out of our hospitals. And, and get them going where they need to be going, whether it be inpatient or outpatient, get them on the right meds. And again, the biggest problem, I talked to a couple of physicians, and they said, we just don't have time. Most of them only work 4 days a week. They just don't have time to try to work in an examination. So the judge that asked for this bill just said, we really need to see if we can put our PAs and our APRNs in there. And the bottom line is, if either one of those groups did not feel like they had the background to make that decision, they could say no. And so just because you come up and you say, hey, Dr. So-and-so, could you do an examination on this particular person? And they say, well, I just don't feel comfortable doing it, they can always say no. So, but at least it gives us more options over in our corner of the state. And as I said before, we're kind of an outlier because we have folks that sometimes have been in the state hospital and then they stay in our community after they get out. Sometimes they do really well, sometimes they don't do really well. And sometimes we end up with those same people having to try to get an examination done in 7 days. I don't know if that answers the question.
Senator Scott.
Madam Chairman, 2510-101, little 4, examiner means a licensed psychiatrist, a licensed physician, a licensed advanced practice nurse, advanced practice registered nurse, a licensed physician assistant, a licensed psychologist, a licensed professional counselor, a licensed addictions therapist, a licensed clinical social worker, or licensed marriage and family therapist. So the examiner, you have a broad range of who the first examiner may be. The reviewer is much more restricted, and that's what we're talking about here. And let's be clear, we need the bill either with or without the amendment. Without the amendment, it's broader. It would be more desirable, but I'm afraid that if we put the amendment on, we'll be back in 2 or 3 years taking it off because it will be too restrictive. We are really suffering in this state, Madam Chairman, major problems with having enough medical personnel.
Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So back to what the amendment does, it's a corrected copy, so it's only dealing with the review. It's not dealing with the examiner because the good bringer of the bill thought that was too restrictive. So this happens in 2 phases, and the folks that testified before us that brought this amendment up as a possible solution explained it to us like it's like a funnel. The examiner, Madam Chairman, is great big. All of the people the good senator from Bates Creek just read can examine and get people started down this course. But when you get to this point, these are, they're forced upon the patient, and it's a difficult decision for the family, for the patient, for everyone. So what happens is, if you go to line 10, the examination shall be conducted no later than 7 days from the date of the notice. If the examination is conducted by an examiner other than a licensed physician, a licensed psychiatrist, and we're leaving all of this alone, a licensed advanced practice registered nurse, a licensed physician's assistant, or a licensed psychologist, the court shall appoint a licensed physician, a licensed psychiatrist, and this is where the amendment comes in. Then we're requiring the certification for the nurse or the physician's assistant. That allows them to get into the program, but when you review these decisions, the reviewers have to have that certification as a mental health professional. So to me, that strikes the right balance between getting everyone the treatment they need, making sure that things are done appropriately, and then the court ordering the review so that the people reviewing actually have qualifications to make that decision, and no one slips through the cracks. So that's my intention with the amendment. I hope you will give it your favorable attention.
Are you ready for the question? All those in favor of Senator Steinmetz's motion to adopt the Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 23, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All those in favor, please rise. All those opposed, please rise. The motion to adopt Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 23 has passed. We are back on the bill. Senator Schuler.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Again, just, this is really an access to care for some of our most vulnerable people. I just hope you'll vote for it. I think we need to be able to, as the good senator for Bates Creek, take a look later down the road and see if we're doing what we need to do to get more health care, especially those in the psychiatric area, licensed to be able to do some of these reviews and that sort of thing. But it's a good bill, and I think the judge is spot on. He doesn't want to see our folks languishing in the jails and out on the streets and, you know, in our bars and whatever. He wants to make sure these folks get the proper treatment they need and you know, get on their way. So with that, I hope you vote for the bill.
Are you ready for the question? All those in favor of Senator Brennan's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with a favorable recommendation of Senate File 23, say aye. Those opposed, no. Senate File 23, outpatient examination and commitment length has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for consideration is Senate File 41. Reading clerk will read in the Senate file.
Senate File 41, Portable Benefit Accounts, an act relating to labor and employment, sponsored by Senator Olson, referred to Committee Number 10, which returned a recommendation of do pass amended, voting aye. Senators Brennan, Crum, Hutchings, Scott, and Steinmetz. Signed, Senator Brennan, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What's your pleasure?
I move that when the Committee of the Whole rise to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 41 do pass. There is a standing committee amendment, if we could have that read in.
Will the reading clerk please read the amendment?
Senate File 41, Standing Committee Amendment Number 1, page 3, line 3.
I'd move Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 41, and for an explanation of the bill and the amendment, I will turn it over to the sponsor of the bill, Senator Olson.
Senator Olson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So, good senators, I bring you Senate File 41, Portable Benefits Accounts. This bill deals specifically with independent contractors. There are approximately 65,000 independent contractor workers in the state of Wyoming. And by independent contractor, we mean a non-W-2 self-employed individual. They're generally responsible for their own taxes, and they do not receive traditional benefits from the employer, which is what this bill seeks to address. This bill provides independent contractors with an opportunity to access what we're defining in this bill as portable benefits that they can carry from one job to the next. The benefits are completely voluntary on the part of the independent contractor, so they opt into having such an account, and it's completely voluntary on part of the business, also agreeing to extend those benefits to the independent contractor. Walk you through the bill first, just some of the highlights, and then it'll be easier if I do that, and then kind of weave in the amendment when we get to the right place. So a portable benefit account, what it means is an account that's administered by a portable benefit account provider. It's assigned to a beneficiary of one or more benefit plans for the purpose of funding one or more benefit plans, which include a health benefits, income replacement insurance, life insurance, retirement benefits, and as the amendment adds in, dental and vision benefits. So we're talking about all of the benefits that you can think about that are generally provided when an employee and an employer have a relationship. We're talking about a scenario now where those same benefit packages can be provided to an independent contractor. Like I said, it's completely voluntary. Any person may voluntarily contribute funds to a portable benefit account for or on behalf of the independent contractor. When the employer is making that contribution, they can reach an agreement with the independent contractor that it be in addition to the compensation that they provide them, or they can take it out of the compensation as long as both of the parties agree. It's expressly agreed to between the independent contractor and the employer in writing. And that written agreement is very clear, unambiguous, and it's prominently displayed in a work contract or a separate agreement. The withholdings, the program, the statute would allow the program recipient, the independent contractor, to pull out of that relationship at any point in time. The amendment also allows the hiring party or the employer to do the same thing, as long as they provide a 60-day notice to the independent contractor. So I've touched a couple aspects of the amendment. The only other part of the amendment that I haven't talked about is on page 3, there's a definition of portable benefit account provider. This definition includes a bank under the original legislation, an investment management firm, a technology provider. The legislation actually uses financial institution in place of bank, so that was just kind of a drafting error. So this amendment cleans that up. So any reference to a bank is the broader definition of a financial institution, which includes a bank, credit union, and speedy banks. All right. That is the bill. I'll take any questions, Madam Chairman. Or on the, actually, let's go back to the amendment. That is the amendment, so I'll take any questions on the amendment.
Any questions? All those in favor of Senator Olson's motion to adopt a standing committee amendment number 1 to Senate File 41, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The motion to adopt standing committee amendment number 1 to Senate File 41 has passed. We are back on the bill.
And I'll take any questions on the bill, Madam Chairman.
Senator Hutchings.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Like the bill, but I'd like to kind of get an idea, because I'm a visual learner, how this process is going to work. Thank you.
Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Piling on a little bit, the question I have is related to the same thing, which is getting to the paperwork side, the functional side, ensuring that you're pre-tax and making it work the way that it's supposed to work from just a paycheck distribution. How is that done? And I also like the bill. I think it's a good concept. I'm just curious about how it's going to work.
Senator Olson.
Yeah, so I think in order to, let's back up and kind of walk through the entire process of how this would work. A portable benefit account provider, which is a financial institution, an investment management firm, a technology provider or program manager that offers services through a financial institution, or any other person that demonstrates to the satisfaction of our banking commissioner that they can, in fact, carry out this work. They're going to create a benefit plan option for independent contractors and employers to opt into. So it starts with those institutions deciding to offer the benefit as a package. Next, the employer would say, I like this option that financial institution ABC is offering. I think I would like to offer that to the independent contractors who service my business. So then the employer would contract with the financial institution, ABC, that offers the benefit. So they would have the benefit program as part of their employment pack, or the part of their independent contractor services package. If they have, so many independent contractors that do work for them, they would go to those independent contractors and say, you know what, we now have this benefit plan. It's like a health savings account, for example. We would like to offer it to you. And then they would it has to be in a written agreement, and they would construct a written agreement that both parties agree to. And the independent contractor, what they're gonna have to agree to is whether it's withheld as part of their compensation or in addition to their compensation. That's probably the big decision that the independent contractor has to make. Once they've agreed to all of that, then the independent contractor gets paid from the hiring party on whatever basis it is, weekly, monthly, whatever they've agreed to. And the employer would take a portion of that check, or in addition to the check, whatever they agreed to, deposit it into the retirement plan or whatever it is, and then the employer or the independent contractor would have the benefit of that fund whenever they wanted to use it. So that's just kind of a walkthrough of what it's going to look like. It's going to be very similar to an employer having a benefit package, offering it to their employee agreeing to be in it, their employee contributing to it, the employer contributing to it, the employee benefiting from the program. The difference here is that it's just not an employee, it's an independent contractor. Obviously, the programs have to be offered up by financial institutions first, because it's not going to be part of your standard package that you offer your employees. It's going to be a different type of package that you would offer to independent contractors. So you have to first imagine that the benefit has to be created by an institution first. I'm not really sure, the last part of that question from the good senator from over the hill deals with taxes. And I, as an attorney, am very nervous to give any tax advice because it is far outside of my expertise. So I don't know, but I will look further into that and see if I can't get you an answer. But, in terms of like, any federal taxation, I don't think that's going to change any. When an independent contractor pays their own taxes, so an independent contractor does not pay any taxes, so nothing's going to, or doesn't pay out of their paycheck taxes. They just get here's the money for the service completed. So nothing there should change in this scenario. So I don't know that there's much more consideration for taxes, but I can certainly look into that.
Senator Case.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So, in the world when you have a business, and there are advantages to hiring contractors, and there's advantages to having people be your own employees. Sometimes the IRS frowns on classifications between the two. There are specific things about independent contractors, for example, like they have to decide their own work rules, they have to have their own schedule. There are just a bunch of things that keep them from being more than just like taking your employee off the book and telling your employee that they need to pay their own taxes, et cetera, et cetera. So it's an area that gets scrutinized. And so when you try to say, well, this function, these are independent contractors, this is all expenses, and you don't have implications for withholding or otherwise treating them as employees. It may involve insurance, it may involve different things. So that's scrutinized. Now, I want to ask is, if this is done, does that kind of lead to perhaps more scrutiny that really these aren't independent contractors, they're just employees that you're trying to make look like independent contractors? That's the fear from an employer standpoint. That's the fear that we would have going, to set up something like this. And it's not cut and dry. It's not easy. I'd like some reassurances about that.
Senator Rothfuss.
Thanks, Madam Chairman. One more question, well, I guess two more. First of all, on the taxes, my thought there was really, you typically want to pay for your benefits pre-tax, and I didn't see how that was going to work if you're a 1099 wage earner. I honestly just don't know how that ends up happening because nobody's doing a deduction. So I wasn't sure how that ends up working. It seems like it should be pre-tax, but I guess I don't see how it ends up getting to be pre-tax. The other aspect comes down to the portability across state lines of insurance and how that ends up being managed, where if you're a contractor or a gig worker, we'll just assume that you're working in a lot of different states. I assume you're going to contract with one entity that would be in Wyoming at this point in time, since we're creating this system in Wyoming. And I'm wondering if there is any consternation with interstate insurance requirements where we really don't have the easy ability to have insurance traveling across state lines, whether there's any concern there. Although I do know that we have plenty of remote workers that are operating on the insurance of someone they're working for that's elsewhere, but we don't have the employer to provide the home link. So this gets back to the idea of, are we creating that home link through the financial institution in a way that's equivalent to the employer home that allows for the interstate portability? It's kind of a complexity. I wish we didn't have the complexity, right? It causes half of our problems with insurance, that you can't insure across state lines, pool across state lines, and do all the things that we would like to do. But looking at those complexities, and maybe the simple way to answer this, have other states adopted this law already and it works just fine? Okay, that'll probably be helpful. Thank you.
Any further questions? Senator Olson.
Is it back to me? Okay. So a lot to cover there. Yes, other states have enacted portable benefits laws. Utah, Alabama, Tennessee, and Wisconsin are the 4 states that have, and they are, Utah is the oldest state with having adopted it in 2023, and the others are a lot sooner, 2025. This legislation, I believe, is actually modeled after the Utah model because it's been in play a little bit longer, so it seemed like it was the best thing to model it after. I think the benefits are pre-tax. That's the way it would work. So I'm sorry I didn't explain that better when you asked that question initially to the good senator from the city with the university. So to answer some of the other questions about the status of the independent contractor, so 2 things. First is on page 4, subsection C. This bill tries to make it really clear that the status of the independent contractor doesn't change by virtue of the plan existing. So the law will actually state that, for one. It says any contribution to a portable benefit account made under this section shall not be used as a criterion or factor for determining a person's employment classification. So the law attempts to make that clear, that we're not trying to set it up so that it does change. Now, I understand just because it says that doesn't mean the IRS has to treat it that way. Obviously, the IRS may treat it differently. But further to that point is what it means to be an independent contractor. In this bill, we use the definition that has existed in Wyoming law for some time now. And under the definition of an independent contractor, it's a person who is free from control and direction over the details of the performance of their services by the employer, that they represent that their services to the public are self-employed, or that they are an independent contractor, and that that person may be substituted for another person services at any point in time. So if all of those are true, and the person is holding themselves out to be an independent contractor, everyone sees this person as an independent contractor, and they are free from the control or direction of the hiring party or the employer, then they should not be treated as an employee just because there's now a health savings account benefit. And that's the idea there. So now, again, the IRS can do what it does, and the IRS may interpret it differently, which is why ultimately the best way for this idea to function is for the federal government to take it up. But there are states that are trying to deal with the issue on their own. And I think that also goes to the question from a good senator from over the hill. portability of the benefit primarily is within the state. So it's to go from job to job within the state. You will absolutely implicate other laws from other states if you cross over to another state. Obviously, if another state doesn't recognize the account, you could have an issue. I think you used to be able to draw off the account when you retire, as an example, but it doesn't mean that your dental benefits are going to travel with you to another state any more than it does as an employee who travels outside of a network of an insurance offered inside of one state into the other. So portability of benefits across state lines is a major issue in our country in general. I don't think this bill does a lot to change that. You have the same issues as you would have under a traditional benefit plan.
Any further questions? All those in favor of Senator Brennan's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with a favorable recommendation of Senate File 41, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Senate File 41, Portable Benefit Accounts, has passed the Committee of the Whole. Senator Kolb.
Privilege of the floor.
Go right ahead.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to introduce Devin Brubaker. He's the manager of the Southwest Wyoming Regional Airport, a premier airport in southwestern Wyoming. Both the chairman and I are from. I'd like to give him a big hand. He's done a great job at the airport, and it's a fantastic facility that you all should fly out of.
Welcome, Devin. The next bill for consideration is Senate File 101. Will the reading clerk please read the bill?
Senate File 101, Second Amendment Protection Act Amendments 3, an act relating to the protection of constitutional rights, sponsored by Senator Beitman, referred to Committee Number 2, which recommended do pass, voting aye. Senators Driscoll, French, Garou, Larson, and Salazar, signed Senator Salazar, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure? Senator Salazar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 101 do pass. And to explain this bill, Senator Beitman.
Senator Beitman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, bring you Senate File 101, Second Amendment of Protection Act Amendments. Ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned during the introduction, the bill does 5 key things. We close up some loopholes, we clarify some language, we have some amendments that we brought in on the request of law enforcement, and we add civil penalties into existing law. And I'll walk you through the bill. Page 2 is just conforming amendments. Page 3, draw your attention to the stricken language. That language is pretty vague, so we took that out and replaced it. It clarifies that agencies cannot work around SEPA by allowing their officers to be used in federal gun seizure task forces. In other words, the ATF can't hire Wyoming cops to enforce federal gun control laws. You'll see that on lines 15 and 16. Also, draw your attention to the word solely on line 16. It's very important. Moving on down over to, let's see, lines 16 through 18. Again, we clean up some existing language so law enforcement knows what they can and cannot do when it comes to aiding in the enforcement of federal gun control laws. Current law is confusing. This makes it very clear. Flip over to page 4. Again, draw your attention to the word solely at the top of page 4 on line 1 regarding firearms, accessories, or ammunition. This still allows for, we hear a lot of concern about the ability to use task forces for ICE, for immigration task forces, tribal task forces, DEA task forces, you name it, we have them all. This allows all those to continue. The only task forces that are prohibited are the ones solely regarding firearms, accessories, or ammunition against law-abiding citizens. So any kind of federal gun control order that comes down from an administration, this would protect Wyoming citizens. Everything else, if the underlying problem is not firearms related that violates Wyoming law, you're good to go. Moving on to the middle of page 4, let's see, lines 6 through 7, we add in the definition of peace officers as defined as 72101. Right now, as you can see, current law only has a penalty provision against public officers. Public officers are derived from the Constitution. Think governor, legislators, public officers. Peace officers are added in. And then you see at the bottom of that paragraph, very important, nothing in this section shall be construed to prohibit Wyoming governmental entities from accepting federal assistance or funds for the enforcement of laws in this state. It means we can take all the help we can from federal agencies. Again, at the bottom of page 4, we are just cleaning up some languages, and that the penalties are not against cops, they're against the agencies. Very important. Flip over to page 5. You will, we had a standing committee amendment on page 5, lines 14 through 19. It didn't make it, so I'll bring that on second reading. We will cut and paste that paragraph I to a different part of the bill. That was at the request of law enforcement. It's a big deal for them. So pin that one, we'll come back to that. And then clarification at the bottom of page 5 where we talk about sovereign immunity shall not be an affirmative defense. Remember, sovereign immunity attaches to the agencies. Qualified immunity is what attaches to cops. We're not going after qualified immunity at all. So cops are protected again. Paragraph D on page 6 closes another pretty big loophole. It clarifies that an officer may not simply go to work temporarily for the feds for the purposes of getting around SAPA and violating federal gun control laws and then coming back to their native agencies. So in the current law, that loophole exists. This would close that loophole. And then I have I'll get to that in a second. Again, middle of page 6, line 17, I draw your attention to the word solely. Again, we're only talking about these types of enforcement mechanisms solely regarding firearms, accessories, or ammunition. Flip over to page 7. You'll see starting in paragraph E on line 4, these are your carve-outs. These are what we worked with. We listened to law enforcement. Carve out paragraph 1. Paragraph 2. Paragraph 1 deals with illegal aliens. Paragraph 2 says the underlying issue is not guns. It's okay. You're good to go. Paragraph 3. Accepting federal assistance for the enforcement of laws in the state. Then we'll flip over to page 8, and that's where the Committee of the Whole Amendment would come in. It's another carve-out language that it would add a paragraph 3, and it would read, prohibit the hiring or impose any penalties under subsection D of this section for the hiring of any person whose federal service.
Excuse me, can we have that amendment?
No, I'm just explaining the amendment right now. I'll get to that at the end after I walk you through the bill.
Sorry.
So basically that's there because law enforcement asked us, well, what if we have a person who has military experience? Does this bill muddy the waters on that? So I said, well, if it does, we'll run an amendment, and here's that amendment to clarify that for you. So I'll move that amendment after I walk you through the bill, Madam Chairman. Which we're almost done. And let's see. Actually, that is pretty much it. That is the bill. Now I will move Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1, is Senate File 101. and have it read in, please.
Will the reading clerk please read the amendment?
Then I'll move it.
Senate File 101, Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1, page 8, after line 16. Corrected copy.
All right, Madam Chairman, I move Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 101 and ask for the body's favorable consideration. I'll stand for questions on the amendment.
We ready for the question? All those in favor of Senator Beitman's motion to adopt the Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 101, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
No.
The motion to adopt Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 101 has passed. We are back on the bill. Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have some questions about the addition of the language related to solely, and I see what it's trying to do. I see the intent, but I guess I have concerns over the idea that that's easily worked around. It's an easy loophole. So you imagine circumstances like we see around the country right now where there are a lot of activities of federal agents in certain neighborhoods, certain cities. Their primary mission at this point in time is not firearm related. But it seems like the kind of thing they might do. We need to take your guns. You're a threat to us. All of you folks that are gathering here, give us your guns. I don't understand how this then would prevent the local law enforcement from helping out on that, because the primary purpose is the action that we see going on across the country right now. That's the mission. But, Madam Chairman, it's a lot more convenient if all of the protesters don't carry a concealed weapon, for example. In fact, we heard from federal agency that they would prefer if protesters and other such hooligans would not carry concealed weapons, would not exercise their Second Amendment rights, and would not attend any of these events with any of these horrible threatening weapons that they regrettably have brought. When we add the word solely, as far as I'm concerned, this bill does nothing, because the solely loophole allows the federal government to create a primary mission where a subsidiary mission to that is, and don't forget all their guns, but that's not the primary mission. The primary mission is round up immigrants. So how does this bill keep doing anything when we add the word solely and create a loophole that, again, it took me about 11 seconds to figure out, and some of the top-notch folks in DC that are trying to figure out how to work around this would probably have at least an hour to work on. So I'm a little bit concerned that it doesn't do what I know my good friend intends for it to do if we pass as drafted.
Senator Case.
Madam Chairman, I think, I plan on supporting this bill, but I do have to question, why is this bill okay? And having federal agents and federal, and the military even on the streets of our cities, okay as well, to enforce different types of federal laws or statutes. And I have trouble, sometimes it kind of bothers me a little bit. And, I think of Pasta Comitatus, and I think of, a few years under different leadership in Washington, we talked about jackbooted thugs, and we talked about, all these things that were happening. And now I don't want any of that. I want to protect our guns, and I support this bill, but I don't know why we're not so quick to protect things like our right to vote, or our right to be peaceful in our houses, or our rights to assemble. So I hope we're going to have bills about that in the future too.
Senator Salazar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, this bill looks very familiar to me, and I remember clearly this body's appreciation for this bill. I want to say thank you to you, Senator Beitman, for bringing this bill. You know, we have, well, I'll speak for myself. I get quite a few emails during session, but my first priority are those emails that come from my district. And I am not very surprised that the gun owners in my district overwhelmingly support this bill. Obviously, you have my support. I think this is a bill that we should pass. I think we should have passed it a year ago with the governor's signature, but it's been brought back because of the executive. But I fully support this bill. My gun owners, my gun Second Amendment folks in my district support it. I think it's the right thing to do, and I appreciate the bringer of the bill.
Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I too will be supporting this bill. I think that I do want at least the bringer of the bill and others who are very familiar with this language to at least take a look on page 3, lines 18 or 19 and 20. It talks about law, treaty, executive order, rule, regulation of the United States government. And then if I jump down to page 5, line 1, there's, and it's in the same section, it's otherwise acting under the color of federal or state law. So I think I want to make sure that we are clear that we're talking about enforcing federal law, not something that we actually have enacted. The state of Wyoming has law about. So maybe I'm not reading it correctly, but I think the context is in federal law, and yet there's a part here where it talks about state law. So just some clarification at some point. Doesn't have to be today, but maybe on second reading. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Senator Hicks.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, an inquiry on this. So I'm trying to understand, because we create a civil cause of action, but it allows individuals or entities to seek that monetary damage. And then when it comes in and it brings in entities, it says interested parties. So I just like a little explanation is why we're allowing entities and interested parties to come in and pursue civil action against local governments. So give me an example of what would constitute an entity that could proceed with a civil action associated with something that a law enforcement officer did under the employment of that entity. We just get some clarifications on how that works and who that might be.
Senator Landon.
Madam Chairman, thank you. I don't mean to make the list too long, but really appreciate the conversation this evening, and also appreciate the bill and fully intend to support it. A lot of good work has gone in here. But I would be remiss if I didn't share something more for the public, I guess, than all of us in here. We know that we continue to work these bills all the time. I mean, we're working out here, we're working in here, and thus was the case with the bringer of this bill. This week we had a question that came up, and it was kind of relative to page 7. When you look at the language in the bill, a person does not violate the provisions of this section when, and the question to me, as a member of your Air Transportation Committee, was, are we okay in our airports? For example, some of our folks, this comes from our association that represents our sheriffs and chiefs, indicated that sometimes there's assistance given to the TSA agents. When somebody's trying to get on an airplane and maybe they've broken a federal law. And so I just throw that out so that everyone can be thinking about that along with me. The good sponsor of the bill and I have had a couple of conversations on this, and we think we're okay, but it is a little gray, and so you sure don't want any of our finest to get in a bad situation just by helping out in an airport situation. So just wanted to throw that out as one of the members of the Air Transportation Committee, and concerns expressed, or at least questions by our airport operators. So thank you.
Senator Cole.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. Woman, just to the bringer of the bill, could you verify, please, that this is the exact same bill the governor vetoed, at least before that last amendment? That's my question. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Senator Beitman.
Thank you. Happy to be the punching bag here. All right, let's go with the solely. And the next question was kind of similar to that. Why don't we do, I would support a 10th Amendment Preservation Act. If somebody wants to draft that up, that'll include everything that the good senator from Fremont County was talking about, but that's not what this bill is about. This bill specifically is amending our Second Amendment Preservation Act, which has some loopholes in it that you could drive a truck through, and we're trying to close those loopholes. To the good point from my friend from the Ivory Tower, if he's got language that would help me with the solely, I'll solely work with you and get that on second reading, because certainly I want to make sure that this bill does what it's intended to do. I'm comfortable with the language solely, but if you think you got something better, let's take a look at that. The interested party question, that was what when I walked you through the bill, I told you that was part of the standing committee amendment that didn't get filed, I guess, and I'll bring it on second reading, but it takes care of Senator from Carbon County's question there. TSA, we heard about them. TSA, that doesn't apply to this bill whatsoever. I can assure you of that. SAPA only limits what Wyoming cops can do. We can't limit the TSA. And SAPA allows Wyoming cops to help the feds if firearms are not the primary violation. So the airports are safe there. And this was the carbon copy of the bill last year before the amendments. Stand for more questions. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Senator Salazar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since I chaired that committee when it was up, there was a standing committee amendment, and we passed it. I'm not sure why it's not here, but as the bringer said, we'll fix it on second reading.
Any further questions? All those in favor of Senator Salazar's motion, when the committee of the whole rises to report, it do so with a favorable recommendation of Senate File 101, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Senate File 101, Second Amendment Protection Act amendments has passed the committee of the whole. Senator Nethercott.
Madam Chairman, I move that the committee of the whole rise and report. I move
You have heard the motion.
Rise and report. Thank you.
You have heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried.
Committee of the whole report.
Mr. President, your committee of the whole, having under consideration bills on general file, begs leave to report as follows. Senate File 19 do pass. Senate File 53 do pass. Senate File 61 do pass amended. Senate File 48 do pass amended. Senate File 23 do pass amended. Senate File 41 do pass amended. Senate File 101 do pass amended. Senator Jones, Chairman.
Senator Jones.
Mr. President, I move for the adoption of the committee of the whole report.
We've all heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Motion's adopted. Thank you, Senator Jones. All right, we have some bills on, what's that? Standing committee reports.
Mr. President, dated February 17, 2026, your committee number 1, Judiciary, to whom was referred Senate File 88, Sex Offenders, Residents Near Child Care Facilities, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with the recommendation that it do pass amended. Voting aye, Senators Craigo, Crum, Hicks, Kolb, and Olson. Signed, Senator Olson, Chairman. Mr. President, dated February 17, 2026, your committee number 1, Judiciary, to whom was referred Senate File 92, Wyoming False Claims Act, respectfully report same back to the Senate with the recommendation that it do pass as amended. Voting aye, Senators Craigo, Crum, Hicks, Kolb, and Olson. Signed, Senator Olson, Chairman. Mr. President, your committee number 1, Judiciary, dated February 17, 2026, to whom was referred Senate File 87, Felony Interference with a Police Officer Amendments, respectfully report same back to the Senate with the recommendation that it do pass as amended. Voting aye, Senators Craigo, Crum, Hicks, Kolb, and Olson. Signed, Senator Olson, Chairman. Mr. President, dated February 17, 2026, your committee number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources, to whom was referred Senate File 109, Cowboy State Agricultural Trust Fund, respectfully report same back to the Senate with the recommendation that it do pass as amended. Voting aye, Senators Boner, Hicks, Jones, Landon, and Schuler. Signed, Senator Landon, Chairman. Mr. President, dated February 17, 2026, your committee number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources, to whom was referred SJ9, Keeping Public Lands Protected and Decisions Local, respectfully report same back to the Senate with the recommendation that it do pass. Voting aye, Senators Boner, Hicks, Jones, Landon, and Schuler. Signed, Senator Landon, Chairman. Mr. President, your committee number 6, Travel, dated February 17, 2026, your committee number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources, to whom was referred Senate File 104, Higher Education Research Funding, respectfully report same back to the Senate with the recommendation that it do pass. Voting aye, Senators Boner, Hicks, Jones, Landon, and Schuler. Signed, Senator Landon, Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Senator Landon, you got some work for the Good Appropriations Committee?
Boy, we sure do, Mr. President. Thank you. We've been doing a little work today on the Travel, Recreation, and Wildlife Committee. Mr. President, absent objection, I would ask that Senate File 109 be re-referred to Committee 2, Appropriations. I would also, I'll let you rule.
All right, I don't hear any objections, so absent objection, Senate File 109 has been re-referred to Committee number 2, Appropriations.
Thank you, Mr.
And
President.
what's the catch title on that, good Senator?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't have that in front of me.
My prediction is it's Cowboy State Agricultural Trust Fund.
You know, I
was a betting
think you're awfully close to that. So, Mr. President, Senate File 109 is the Cowboy State Agricultural Trust Fund.
Imagine that.
So,
Man.
there you go.
All right.
And so, Mr. President, I would also ask, absent objection, that Senate File 104, Higher Education Research Funding, be re-referred to Committee 2, Appropriations.
Thank you. Hearing no objection is so ordered. Senate File 104 has been re-referred to Committee number 2, Appropriations.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you all for your hard work. Okay. Anything else, Ellen? That's it. Madam Majority Floor Leader. Do we have a, there she is. Madam Majority Floor Leader, that clears the desk.
Mr. President, I move that we stand adjourned until 10 a.m., February 18th, 2026.
Thank you. Announcements. Senator Barlow.
Mr. President, thank you, Mr. President. So members, a little while ago, there were some pins passed out to you, pink ribbons. Tomorrow is Breast Cancer Awareness, so if you wanted to show your support for that cause, they will be here tomorrow presenting as they do each year. So again, tomorrow, Breast Cancer Awareness. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. President. sorry, I might have should have done this at lunch. Anyways, your Senate Labor, Health, and Social Services Committee will meet tomorrow, Wednesday, February 18th, upon the noon recess in Capitol Extension E001 and online to take up Senate File 121, Wyoming Pharmacy Act amendments.
Thank you. Senator Anderson, what's going on in minerals?
Your favorite committee, Mr. President, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development will meet tomorrow noon in W004 to hear 3 bills. Senate File 21, Wyoming Stable Token Amendments. Senate File 22, Unincorporated Nonprofit Associations Amendments. Senate File 54, State Banks and SPDI Conversions. And Senate File 55, Special Purpose Depository Institution Amendments. I've advised the bringer of these bills to make it fast because we're going to get all 4 done at the noon hour. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Olson.
Mr. President, your committee number 1 judiciary will meet tomorrow upon noon recess in W002 to consider 3 bills. Senate Joint Resolution 5, Convention of States, Senate File 105, Real Estate Brokers Duties and Disclosure Amendments, and Senate File 111, Select Committee on Gaming.
Thank you very much. Senator Schuler.
Thank you, Mr. President. Education Committee tomorrow will hear 3 bills, and I want to thank the good chairman of the TRW Committee for taking on a couple of ours. We couldn't have gotten through 5 or 6 bills tomorrow. So anyway, we will take a look at Senate File 35, School District Cell Phone and Smartwatch Policies. We'll take a look at Senate File 90, School Facilities Use Fees, and Senate File 72, Interstate Teacher Mobility Compact, 8 o'clock in the morning, same place. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any further announcements? Senator Ide.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to make an announcement tomorrow upon adjournment, which is Wednesday at 5 to 8 p.m. The Joint Ag State and Public Lands and Water Resources Committee will host the annual Forest Health Briefing with the U.S. Forest Service and the Bureau of Land Management. So encourage everybody to come. It's always real good. We've got some wind at our back right now with the Good Neighbor Authority. We just got out of here today on 3rd reading and what's going on back in Washington. We might get back in the timber harvest business this year. So encourage everybody to come. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you for the announcement. Any further announcements? Seeing none. You've all heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Senate will stand adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow.